top story. We're going to talk about the port negotiations in LA Long Beach that have now gone past the July 1st deadline. And for that, we bring in Eric Kulich, who can give us an update on things and what's going on there. Eric, hey, good morning, my friend. Welcome to the show.
Good morning. Glad you had a good 4th. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I suspect you had a good one as well, my friend, I imagine.
I did not blow up things, but it was cool.
There you go. Excellent. So let's talk about what's going on in the labor negotiations. They've gone past July 1st. We went into Friday as, kind of bloody Friday for logistics, right? But this doesn't seem to be too bad of a thing that it's gone past. What's going on there?
Right. Well, as people following the supply chain issues this year know, we've had so much congestion over the past year and a half with pandemic at the Port of Los Angeles and Long Beach, and just because of the supply chain disruptions and all the demand. And now comes another wrinkle or headwind in that the union that all the dock workers belong to, the International Longshoremen and Warehouse Association, their contract came up for renewal and just expired on Friday. And, that's a big deal because, if the labor isn't happy or there's any kind of disruption from a labor standpoint, it could further complicate or delay shipments. And so there, a lot of cargo owners and other people in the logistics sector have been on pins and needles for months anticipating how this would go, given the history of these negotiations for, previous cycles going back, 20, 30 years where, several times, including back in 2014 timeframe, we had a pretty severe work slowdown and backlogs that lasted for months because the cargo wasn't getting moved. The longshoremen were working to the rule, basically, or just slow walking a lot of the work to sense their displeasure with the talks. So right now we've gone past the extension, but on the good side, both sides have come out, jointly saying, we're going to keep working, keep the ports operating, and we're not, there's not going to be any disruptions. We're not doing any lockouts by the owners or by the management, and we're not doing any other disruptions from labor standpoint. So, and they made that promise directly to President Biden in a meeting a couple weeks ago. So, people take that as a good sign for now.
So, Eric, if there aren't going to be any strikes or any lockouts, what are the sticking points here?
Well, I wouldn't say there aren't going to be. I mean, things always change. It's a fluid situation. One side could get frustrated at some point, but it's early days now. And right now everybody's, kind of singing Kumbaya. And so I think for the time being, things are, will be flowing pretty well from a cargo standpoint. The main sticking points are, typically wages and benefits, which, would make these dock workers, again, even more generously compensated as probably the best compensated unionized workforce in the United States or the history of the world, perhaps. But the big sticking point is automation. The management wants to automate these terminals more, especially at the truck gates and in the container yards, to increase the throughput because there's no more room really to expand surrounded by the cities there. And so automation is the only way to keep up with the demand. They're the largest gateway. And so automation is a key thing for them. And the union worries that, they're going to lose jobs because of that. But a lot of people say jobs, ultimately there's going to be so much more volume that, any short-term loss in jobs will be offset by gains. And also there'll be a lot of IT jobs to work work the technology. And I should make one other point. Let's remember, this isn't just a deal for the Port of Los Angeles and Long Beach. This contract extends along the West Coast, 29 ports, including Oakland, Seattle, Tacoma, a lot of other big container ports.
Yeah, it's west coast, so it can affect. And I remember the last time this happened, and we had the slowdown or the work to the rule, which was going on, and things shifted up north to Canadian Vancouver port, not the port of Vancouver, Washington, but the one in Canada, and also coming in through Mexico. There's quite a diversion of things. Is some of this announcement
Right.
and working towards, does this give any indication to fears of losing out more volume to the East Coast as some of those, we saw a lot of investment from the federal government in grants, et cetera, to widen canals, dredge canals, more infrastructure in the East Coast ports. Some of that led by some of that fear that it could permanently lose some of that volume.
Well, I think the ports, the ILWU and the Pacific Maritime Association, who represents the shipping lines and the terminal operators, they're well aware or cognizant that to remain competitive, they can't have probably a long dispute here or any kind of disruptions because over the years, because of previous labor situations and other factors, there's been a small, slow shift of a percentage of cargo volumes to the East Coast. The East Coast share of the total import container volumes has grown, and so they don't want to lose any more of that share. But we've seen in anticipation of these talks, because people don't want to get caught, in a situation where cargo starts piling up if there's a disruption, that people proactively were moving some of their cargo to the East Coast since the beginning of the year. So that's contributed to some of the congestion we've seen at Charleston and New York and Norfolk and other places, and it's kind of helped to ease some of the congestion in LA Long Beach, but if there is kind of a work disruption or a strike, and then people try to shift their cargo, it's open question whether the East Coast Dock Workers Union, the ILA, will actually, will sympathize or won't handle that diverted cargo in sympathy with the ILWU. So we'll have to see. But we're a long way from that right now.
Yeah. Yeah, most definitely. So maybe it's too early to call, or maybe you don't have an answer to this, but the good question I think right now that'd be on everybody's mind is the AB5 ruling or lack thereof, however you want to look at it. Does this have any effect on these negotiations, in your opinion, or have you heard anything?
I as a layman covering this subject, I don't think there's a direct relationship, other than because the efforts to unionize the truckers, or say these truckers aren't independent workers and have to be employed by companies of X certain size, to classify their workers as employees and allow them to unionize. Those workers would be represented by the Teamsters Union, I believe. So it's a separate union than the ILWU. But there is some relationship in the sense that, if that process forces some trucking companies to go out of business or say, I don't want to deal with that, or, there's disruption on the truck side, and then you have labor disruption on the dock side, that's just a bad recipe. So it could be, from a disruption standpoint down the road, if there's, we lose some trucking capacity,
Sure.
That potentially could be an issue, but who knows how that's going to play out, that the Supreme Court just ruled on that or didn't rule, actually. So I think it'll be a while before that actually plays out on the truck side.
Gotcha. So as you talk about, automation is one of the big things that has always been there, right? And through really most recent negotiations it's always been something that the union's been fighting, as far as, the fear of going down the slippery slope and losing jobs, because that's what they're there for, to protect those jobs and the benefits that they bring. Is there some talk there that this automation and guarantee of keeping jobs there, to keep this kind of negotiation going? The automation has to come, right? And if both sides are working on this, there's got to be some sort of agreement that is being made to retain jobs, while this is going on or something, because obviously we learned over the last 2 years the automation, we are way behind the rest of the world as far as automating.
Right, that's a good point. I mean, you see automation really accelerating during the pandemic in all aspects of logistics, from the warehouses and other places. But yes, on the port side, there's very few of these semi-automated terminals in the U.S. We're way behind, Northern Europe and large parts of Asia. So, I don't know exactly how this will get negotiated, but, one expert I talked to or heard speaking about this, offered a potential solution where the ocean carriers and the terminal operators pay a big lump sum fee up front, basically compensation up front to the union, for the right to automate in the future. So it'll be some kind of, incentive, and it could be quite a big sum to solve their wounds over it. But, ultimately there will be jobs on the IT side, because, now you're using video game console guys in an office moving these containers and lifting them onto trucks and then maintaining it. So there will be more IT jobs, and also dock worker jobs over time as the cargo volumes increase.
So real quick, and we're actually out of time, but I just wanted your opinion on that lump sum type of easing of the pain. Is that implying that they would be used for some sort of early retirement to kind of lower the amount of lost jobs and make it more of an attrition type of thing?
I don't know how it would be structured. It could be something like that. It could just, be spread out to all the full-time ILWU members as a bonus. It could go into some kind of kitty for the union for reserves for, lean times or strikes in the future. So, but I'm sure some of the frontline dock workers would get some portion of that, as kind of a benefit or something to convince them.
Sweet. I'd take a bonus and automate part of my job, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You're going to make my job easier, but you have to pay me a bonus before you do it?
Sure.
Sweet.
Okay.
I like it.
A big bonus.
Thank you so much, Eric. You have a great day. Very informative.
All right, take care. Have a good week.
Peace. Very interesting stuff.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Very, very interesting stuff.
Well, we're going to get into our first headlines of the day.